Have you ever woken up and felt that life suddenly became tasteless? It is like a dish that used to be very favorite suddenly loses all its seasoning, or a piece of music that used to make you cry now is just soulless sounds. We often panic before this state, considering it a sign of pathology or collapse. But let's slow down a bit. What if this boredom with life is not a disease, but an invitation? What if the disappearance of joy is actually the beginning of a deeper awakening about the nature of existence? Let's listen and contemplate together. At some stage in life, many people will have to face a strange phenomenon that they never planned for. Things that used to make them passionate activities that used to pump their chests full of enthusiasm and pleasure suddenly become insipid. Musical melodies no longer touch their hearts. Food is no longer as flavorful as the memory of it. Meetings with friends remain only as hollow feelings. Even hobbies that they used to consider their reason for living, like immersing themselves in books, walking amidst nature, or creating art, all somehow become flat pale, lacking the spark that used to make this life worth living. And naturally, when this hits, people become afraid. They are convinced that something terrible has happened. They believe that they have fallen into depression, that they are sick, or that there is some chemical disorder in the brain that needs to be corrected. Or they think simply that they have become cynical, callous, that the flow of life has eroded emotions and stripped away the capacity to enjoy joy. They question themselves with sincere despair. What happened to me? Why am I as numb as stone? But what if I told you that this loss of joy, this surface dullness, is not necessarily a problem that needs fixing? What if this state seemingly like death is actually a rebirth? What if the disappearance of old joy is simply to make room for something different? Something you have not yet had time to recognize, because you are still busy looking for old vibrations, familiar excitements. Let me clarify this point. You see, most of what we call joy or pleasure in daily life is essentially a form of stress relief. It is the soothing of a desire, the filling of a gap, the act of scratching exactly on the itch. You are starving, and then you get to eat. There is pleasure in that act. But note that that pleasure depends on the hunger. If there is no hunger, eating is just a mechanical act of refueling. You are lonely, and then someone cares about you. You feel happy. But that joy exists thanks to the loneliness. If there is no feeling of lack, that care could not move you. This is exactly what the Buddha pointed out when he said that life is a sea of suffering, or more accurately, life is unsatisfactoriness. Not that everything is tragic, but that this endless loop of desire and possession, of lack and filling, of itch and scratch, is inherently precarious and unsustainable. It is based on a feeling of imperfection, a feeling of missing a certain piece, a feeling that oneself has never been complete. And so we spend our whole lives chasing fleeting moments of relief, flashes of satisfaction when a desire is met. We call that happiness. We call that joy. But essentially, it is just the temporary suspension of discomfort. It is like someone hitting you on the head with a hammer and then suddenly stopping, and you feel relieved. You call that relief pleasure. But the core question that no one asks is, why did you let yourself be hit on the head with a hammer in the first place? Now, what happens to some people, and perhaps to you right now, is that they start seeing through the nature of the game. They start realizing that all the pleasures they hunted were actually just escapes from inner insecurity. And once you have seen the true face, once you truly understand it, the old doses of joy become ineffective. Scratching no longer satisfies the itch, because you realize that you yourself are creating the itch just to enjoy scratching it. Like a stimulant addict using drugs to find a high feeling, but the drug itself creates the need for more drugs. The comfort that the addict gets is essentially just the temporary cessation of withdrawal symptoms caused by the drug itself. Once you see this vicious pattern, the entire script collapses. Pleasure loses its charm, because you have looked through it. That is what is happening to you. You have seen through the game of seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. You have realized, perhaps not by reason, but by deep intuition, that all the joys you used to pursue were actually just subtle ways to run away from yourself, from the present moment, from naked reality. And so you are left in a precarious state. The old pleasures have become ineffective medicine. The old excitements become bland. You have lost the ability to be distracted, the ability to be pulled out of yourself by external experiences. And this brings a feeling like death, a feeling like an essential part of the soul has been stripped away, as if you have become a ghost acting out life activities, but not truly living. But listen carefully to this. This state is not a dead end. It is a bridge. It is a transitional space between the old way of operating and a new way of living that you have not discovered. You are in the gap, and this gap is truly scary because there is no fulcrum. The old structures have disintegrated, but the new ones have not taken shape. Imagine a metaphor like this. You have lived your whole life in a dark room, lit only by candles. The candlelight creates dancing shadows full of enchantment on the wall. You spend your whole life watching those shadows, entertaining yourself with them, finding meaning in those flickering shapes. This is like ordinary worldly joys. They are real in their own way, but actually, they are just illusions created by a weak light source. Now what happens if someone throws the door wide open and brilliant daylight floods in? At first, the light is too blinding, almost hurting your eyes. You cannot see anything clearly. Everything becomes dazzlingly blurred, and all those shadows that used to delight you, they disappear, dissolve in the light of reality. And you might exclaim, "How terrible! I have lost all the interesting shapes. Everything becomes pale and tasteless." But you just haven't seen clearly yet. Your eyes haven't had time to adapt to sunlight. Once they get used to it, you will realize that you lost nothing. You have gained everything. Now you are looking at reality directly, not just shadows cast on the wall. And this direct look is richer, more authentic 1,000 times than the shadow game before. But it is a different kind of richness. It does not have the entertainment nature like the shadows. It is something completely different. This is what is happening when nothing brings you joy anymore. The shadow game has ended, but you still haven't learned how to see in the daylight. You are in the interim period, where the old has died, but the new has not been born. And this period can last long. You cannot burn the stages. The eyes of the soul need time to adjust themselves. Usually people's reaction is to try in desperation to cling to old joys. They rush into new hobbies, new relationships, new experiences, hoping to rekindle the dying spark. Or they seek stronger stimuli, louder music, more sensational experiences. Like a person whose taste buds have become callous, trying to season with a lot of hot chili to feel a bit of taste. But this is useless. In fact, it makes things worse, because what is truly needed right now is not more stimulation, but less. What is needed is to stop running away, stop seeking, stop trying to fill the deep, empty hole with experiences. What is needed is to simply stay with what is existing without trying to mold it into something else. And the miracle will happen when you do that. When you stop trying to manufacture artificial joy, you discover a presence that was always there, but was forgotten because you were too busy chasing pleasure. It is not exactly joy by the old definition. It is like an okayness, a fundamental feeling that everything is okay exactly as it is. Not that everything is perfect, but that it is complete. It is enough. It needs no additions. Old joys were based on contrast, pleasure and pain, happy and sad excitement and boredom. But this new state, this okayness, does not depend on opposites. It is constant. Whether circumstances are favorable or difficult, whether you are comfortable or in pain. It is like you, living in a house your whole life, running frantically from room to room to find a treasure, then suddenly realizing that the treasure you seek is the house itself. It has been there all along. You are standing in it. You are it. But you didn't see because you were too busy searching. Now, I must warn you. When I describe this state as okayness, you might think it sounds really boring. You might think, is that all just feeling okay? It sounds unappealing. And you are right. It is not appealing in the stimulating way of old pleasures. It does not have soaring peaks or abyssal depths, no drama. But understand this. Excitement drains strength. Drama exhausts us. Constantly climbing emotional peaks is an erosion. You cannot live at that high intensity forever. You will have short explosive moments and then long dragging silences while waiting for the next high. The low notes get deeper and you need stronger doses to achieve the same high. This is the pattern of an addict. And most people are addicted to experience, addicted to feeling, addicted to the drama of their lives. They constantly stir up life to feel they are living. And they call that joy, but actually it is just agitation. What you lose when nothing brings joy anymore is the addiction to this agitation. And like anyone going through withdrawal, you feel agonized. You feel empty, numb. But what you are really experiencing is the absence of agitations. And at first, this stillness feels like death, because you have been used to noise for so long that you forgot what true peace is like. Let me tell you about a man I used to know. He was a person full of energy, always moving, always pursuing some project. He traveled everywhere, collected experiences, like people collect stamps, always reading, always learning, always seeking new sensations. He was proud because he thought he was living every second fully. Then an incident happened, or simply age arrived, and he lost the fire of enthusiasm. Every activity that used to be important suddenly turned into nothingness. Travel made him tired. Books became bland. Food tasteless. He fell into deep depression, thinking that his life was ruined, that he was a washed-up person. But then, after a time immersed in that state, a shift took place. He told that one day, while sitting idly in the garden, he suddenly realized he was completely content. No excitement, no entertainment, just simply abiding, being present here. He understood that the previous busyness was just a type of running away. He had feared this naked beingness, so he filled his life with activity to avoid it. And now, when everything fell away, he faced what he always ran from. Just this moment, this breath. And it is enough. More than enough. It is everything, although not dramatic. His mind used to dismiss it, considering it nothingness as death. Only when he stopped demanding life to be fun did he discover the extraordinary beauty in the ordinary. This is what I want to show you. When old joy leaves you, are being invited to explore a new quality of experience. Not the ups and downs of emotions, but something subtler, more sustainable. But you cannot force it. You cannot force it to happen. Trying to make it happen is the biggest barrier. Like trying to force yourself to sleep, the more you try, the more awake you are. You must let go. You must surrender to the unknown, to this feeling of emptiness. This is the hardest thing, because we fear emptiness. We think emptiness is death, but actually, emptiness is pure potential. It is the space for the new to sprout. As long as you are full of seeking and effort to cling to the past, there will be no room for the new. You must become hollow, hollow like a clean bowl, hollow to receive, but not to contain old things, but to be filled with something you cannot yet name. I know you want me to show you how to get joy back like before, but I cannot, because what you are going through is not a mistake that needs fixing. It is a molting process, like a caterpillar dissolving itself in a cocoon. The caterpillar has ended its life cycle. It cannot go back to being a caterpillar, but it has not yet become a butterfly. It is just a mass of liquid fluid. And if that fluid mass had consciousness, it would surely be very confused. You are that fluid mass right now. And I affirm this is not a mistake. This is an inevitable process. Be patient with it. Do not try to fill the gap with fake joys. Have the courage to face the boredom, that colorlessness. Let it exist without judging or trying to change it. Gradually, according to the universe's own rhythm. Not yours, a transformation will take place. Not returning to the old way, but moving towards the new. A way of living not dependent on stimulation, finding fullness right in naked existence. This is the destination that enlightened masters always point to. Not a state of eternal ecstasy, but a deep okayness throughout all circumstances. A realization that at the deepest level, you are still okay. Not because your life is smooth, but because your existence is inherently complete. Old joys were like trying to paint more color onto the sunset. The new realization is seeing that the sunset is perfect in itself, needing no additions or subtractions. It is self-sufficient. And so are you. Even in this seemingly emotionless state. But I emphasize you cannot use effort to achieve this. Every effort pushes it away because effort implies that you are lacking. It only comes when you stop trying, when you completely let go. And it can come very gently, so subtly that you don't recognize it immediately. It is not noisy. It is like the feeling of returning to an old home, like taking off tight shoes, like a sigh of relief. So what do you do while waiting? You just live a normal life. Brush teeth, eat rice, work. But do it without expecting them to bring happiness. Do it because it is what needs to be done. With an attitude of neutral acceptance. And observe your state like watching clouds drift. Do not judge. Do not wish the clouds to fly in another direction. And most importantly, stop comparing. Stop comparing the present with the glorious past. Stop comparing yourself with others. Stop comparing this moment with an imagined future. Just be fully present here. This is not giving up, but the courage to face reality. And the paradox is, only when you stop wishing things were different does real change begin, because regret for the past is the wall preventing you from seeing the gift of the present. Let me send you a final concept. Perhaps the reason nothing brings joy to you anymore is because your soul has grown beyond those childish joys. Perhaps the old shirt has become too tight for the stature of your consciousness. A child loves candy. A young person loves love and adventure. An adult loves fame. But at some point, all those things are seen through as ephemeral. And when that happens, you are thrown back to naked existence. This seems like nothing compared to those stimuli. But actually, it is the foundation of all. It is the root before you knew how to search for branches and leaves. It is not nothingness, it is fullness. But it is so simple that the mind often ignores it to find something louder. What you need to realize is that nothing is more special than this very moment of living. Not because it feels good, but because it is real. And the real is always sufficient. You just forgot. So do not despair. You haven't lost the ability to feel, you are just withdrawing from strong sensations. When the door of old joys closes, do not try to break the lock to get back in. Stand still there in the silence and realize that you were never locked out. You have always been in the house of existence. It is just that you were busy looking out the window for too long. Now, when there is nothing left to seek, nowhere left to run, you truly start to live. And the emptiness that you are fearing, that is not a loss. That is the vastest space of freedom, the greatest gift that life is giving you. Receive it.